This house, on evenings like this, always gives me a suffocating feeling, as though it's swallowing my living space. The vast living room, with its luxurious sofas and the artistic paintings adorning the walls, become meaningless without the warmth of the one I love. My husband Mark was once again away, caught up in another of his endless business trips. His work afforded us a comfortable life, but it robbed us of simple joys, warm embraces and long, heartfelt conversations late into the night. I leaned against the window frame, my eyes drifting toward the garden behind the house. The tall trees swayed in the wind, whispering secrets only they could hear. I felt like a dry leaf, swept along by life's current, untethered and adrift. Mark had been gone for nearly 2 weeks, and with each passing day, the loneliness inside me grew, a monstrous force gnawing at my very soul. I filled my days with tasks meant to distract me, cleaning the house, cooking meals for one, reading novels, watching movies. Yet every activity was a thin disguise for the emptiness within. I reached out to friends, but their superficial conversations did nothing to soothe the ache of solitude. And so, I turned to Buddy, my golden retriever, with his silky golden fur, kind brown eyes, and perpetually wagging tail. Buddy didn't judge. He didn't ask questions or make demands. He was simply happy to be near me. I often spoke to him as though he were my closest confidant, telling him about Mark's work, my daily struggles, and the dreams I still held onto. Buddy always listened patiently, occasionally nuzzling my leg as if to offer silent reassurance. After a solitary dinner tonight, I sat on the sofa, a glass of wine in hand. The dim yellow glow of the lamps made the room feel a little warmer, but it couldn't chase away the chill in my heart. Buddy lay at my feet, his breath steady, his eyes half closed. I ran my fingers through his soft fur, drawing comfort from his warmth. "It's just you and me tonight, Buddy," I whispered. His tail thumped lightly against the floor in response, a quiet reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. I thought back to when Buddy first came into our lives. He was a playful, clumsy puppy, full of boundless energy. I'd fallen in love with him at first sight. Back then, Mark and I had cared for Buddy together, teaching him simple commands and making him an inseparable part of our family. But as Mark's absences grew longer, Buddy became more than a pet. He became my closest companion, the steady presence in my most vulnerable moments. I sipped my wine, the bitter taste lingering on my tongue. It didn't erase my loneliness, but it loosened the tension in my chest, making it easier to speak. "You know, Buddy," I murmured, "sometimes I feel like I'm living a life that isn't mine, like I'm trapped in a cycle I can't break free from. I just want to be loved, to be truly heard. But maybe I'm asking too much." Buddy's brown eyes met mine, full of quiet understanding, as if he sensed my turmoil. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the comforting warmth of his body against mine. "Thank you, Buddy," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Thank you for always being here." He licked my hand gently, a tender gesture that said more than words ever could. I held him tighter, letting his warmth chase away the cold that had taken root in my heart. In his presence, I felt lighter, as though the weight of my sorrow had momentarily lifted. Perhaps with Buddy by my side, I could weather the storm. Day by day, the bond between Buddy and me grew stronger. We spent our mornings strolling through the park, our afternoons playing in the garden, and our evenings curled up together, watching movies in the glow of the television. Buddy was my shadow, always there, a quiet witness to my joys and my sorrows. It was as though he understood every emotion I felt, from fleeting moments of happiness to the depths of my sadness. One Saturday morning, I decided to take Buddy to a nature reserve near my house. I wanted to escape the confinement of my home and find a peaceful place to reflect on my life. We walked along the trails, the sound of birds chirping and leaves rustling filling the air. Buddy ran around joyfully, his tail wagging nonstop, clearly delighted by the fresh embrace of nature. I sat down on a large log, watching Buddy explore. A sense of childhood wonder returned to me, transporting me back to those carefree days. I began sharing my dreams with Buddy, confessing the things I longed to do but never found the chance. I spoke of my fear of facing life alone, burdened by too many responsibilities. "Do you ever feel abandoned, Buddy?" I whispered. "Do you ever feel unloved?" Buddy glanced up at me, his deep brown eyes brimming with a silent understanding. I ran my fingers through his soft fur, drawing warmth from his presence. I know I shouldn't feel this way. Mark loves me, I'm sure of that. But still, sometimes I feel so lonely. Buddy nudged my hand with his head as if offering comfort. I hugged him, and peace settled over me. In that moment, I realized that whatever life brought, Buddy would always be by my side, my most loyal friend, my unwavering confidant. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, we made our way back to the car. Buddy curled up on the back seat, his breathing steady and his eyes gently closed. Watching him in the rearview mirror, a warmth bloomed in my heart. It wasn't just his loyalty that I cherished, but his quiet understanding, the constant care he gave so freely. Back home, I opened the windows to let the breeze flow in. The house felt less empty with Buddy near. I settled into the sofa with a book, while Buddy lay contentedly at my feet, his rhythmic breathing a soothing lullaby. Peace unfolded within me like a slow, gentle tide. With Buddy here, loneliness seemed less suffocating. That night, as I prepared for bed, Buddy followed me into the room, taking his spot at the foot of the bed. I stroked him one last time before turning out the light. "Good night, Buddy," I whispered. "Thank you for always being here." He wagged his tail softly in response, a silent expression of love. I closed my eyes and sleep claimed me. In my dreams, I wandered through a dark forest, cold and lost. Fear gripped me as I searched for a way out, but I couldn't escape. Then I heard a familiar bark. Buddy raced toward me, his tail wagging with boundless joy. I threw my arms around him, feeling his warmth chase away my fear. In his embrace, I found safety, a peace deeper than words could describe. No matter what, Buddy would always find me. But reality still carried its own challenges. The long nights remained my greatest trial. When darkness fell, the house grew eerily silent, its walls pressing in like unseen hands, making it hard to breathe. One moonlit night, as I sat alone on the sofa, pale light poured through the windows, casting elongated shadows across the floor. Buddy lay beside me, his breathing a steady, calming rhythm. I reached down and stroked his fur, drawing strength from his warmth. "It's just you and me, Buddy," I murmured. "Only us." He gazed up at me with soulful brown eyes, and I felt a connection that defied language, a bond rooted in shared pain and mutual solace. We understood each other in ways no one else could. I wrapped my arms around him, clinging to the comfort he offered. "I feel so lost, Buddy," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I don't know what to do anymore. I want to be loved, to be cared for, to be truly heard. But maybe I'm asking for too much." Buddy pressed his head against my hand, his touch a wordless reassurance. A tear slipped down my cheek. I had tried so hard to be strong, but sometimes I felt impossibly fragile. Mark's image surfaced in my mind, his warm smile, the way he held me close, the tender words he spoke. But I also remembered the emptiness his absence left behind, the endless nights when I faced the world alone. I felt trapped between love and longing, duty and desire. I looked into Buddy's eyes again, and an unspoken message passed between us. He would always be here, his loyalty unwavering, his love unconditional. I held him tighter, letting his warmth seep into my weary soul. Time moved slowly, the silence so profound that even the ticking clock seemed to echo. Leaning back, I rested beside Buddy, our breaths the only sounds in the dark. Two souls, united against the creeping tide of loneliness. Sleep tugged at my eyelids, but I resisted, fearful of the shadows waiting to reclaim me. Yet, staring into Buddy's trusting gaze, I felt hope stir within me. Perhaps, with him by my side, I could find my way forward. Finally, I drifted into sleep, with Buddy curled up beside me. In my dream, I walked along a long path, dark and desolate. Then, I heard Buddy's bark. He was running toward me, his tail wagging joyfully. I rushed to embrace him, feeling the warmth of his fur. In Buddy's presence, I felt safe and calm. No matter what lay ahead, I knew Buddy would always be by my side. I woke up in the darkness. Though loneliness lingered, a small spark of hope flickered within me. I wasn't completely alone. Buddy was still there. The next morning, sunlight filtered into the room, chasing away the shadows of the night. I opened my eyes, feeling a bit weary. Buddy was already awake, sitting by the bed with a gentle gaze. I smiled and reached out to stroke his head. "Good morning, Buddy," I murmured. "Did you sleep well?" He wagged his tail in response, as if sharing my happiness. I rose from bed and began my morning routine, washing my face, brushing my teeth. Looking into the mirror, I noted my tired, pale reflection. Sleepless nights had drained me. Yet, I resolved to keep moving forward, determined to conquer the emptiness. In the kitchen, I brewed a cup of coffee and settled by the window. The sun bathed the garden in golden light. Despite the serene scene, a strange unease stirred within me. It felt as if something invisible was shifting, something I couldn't name. The previous night's moments returned to my mind. Sitting in the dark with Buddy, feeling a connection unlike any other. It seemed to transcend the usual bonds of companionship. A quiet longing stirred inside me, a pull I didn't fully understand. I tried to dismiss the thoughts, but they crept back like whispers of a haunting memory. It was as if I walked a precarious path, one that could lead to ruin. I reminded myself to stay grounded, to resist temptation, to hold firm to the boundaries I had set. In the living room, Buddy lay faithfully at my feet. I reached down to pet him, the warmth of his body soothing beneath my fingers. A powerful urge to hold him close surged within me, but I resisted. Emotion threatened to overwhelm reason. I stood by the window, staring at the tranquil garden while turmoil raged inside. I couldn't keep running from my feelings. I had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Turning, I met Buddy's patient, understanding eyes. He was waiting, as if sensing my inner conflict. His gaze held a question I feared to answer. I knelt beside him, drawing him into a hug, feeling his warmth against my chest. In his eyes, I recognized something deeper than friendship, a connection I couldn't name. Then I leaned closer and pressed a kiss to his fur. It was a fleeting gesture, but one that shattered every line I had drawn. A surge of emotion coursed through me, shaking me to my core. I hugged Buddy tighter, surrendering to the moment, letting it unfold without resistance. It was a release, a capitulation. I felt the weight of my actions, but I also felt an undeniable, confusing satisfaction. Consequences faded from my mind. I lived only for the now. When it ended, I sat in stunned silence on the sofa, confusion and regret swirling within me. I had crossed a line I never imagined breaching. Shame burned in my chest. I had betrayed my own conscience, my husband, and my trust in myself. Buddy remained by my side, his gentle eyes full of quiet understanding. Guilt gnawed at my heart. I had taken something pure and stained it with my weakness. I whispered to myself that forgiveness would never come. I stood up and walked to the window, gazing at the garden. The scene remained peaceful, but inside me, a storm raged. I felt lost, unsure of how to face it all, as though I was plunging into a bottomless abyss. I went to the kitchen and brewed a cup of tea. Sitting at the table, I looked out the window. The morning sun drenched the garden in warm light, but I felt only cold, loneliness, and fear. Memories of joyful moments with Mark flooded my mind. Beautiful times we had shared together. A sharp pang of guilt pierced through me, a realization that I had betrayed those precious memories. I told myself I didn't deserve Mark's love or the life we had built. Clutching my head, I was consumed by pain and despair. How I longed to turn back time, to undo my actions, but I knew that was impossible. I had to face the consequences and take responsibility. I walked into the living room where Buddy lay watching me. His brown eyes radiated tenderness. A tear slid down my cheek. Unable to bear the weight of guilt any longer, I knelt and hugged Buddy, sobbing into his fur. "I'm sorry, Buddy," I whispered. "I was wrong. I can never forgive myself." He licked my hand gently, as though offering comfort. A fragile peace washed over me, but guilt still gnawed at my soul. I sat on the sofa, stroking Buddy's fur, willing myself to calm down. I knew I couldn't keep running. I had to face reality. The lies had to end. I needed to be honest with myself. I decided to write a letter to Mark, confessing everything. I didn't want to hide from him. He deserved the truth, no matter how painful it would be. Even if he never forgave me, I had to do this. Sitting at the table, I began to write. Words poured from my pen as though they had been waiting for release. I told Mark about my loneliness, my tangled emotions, and my actions with Buddy. I didn't ask for his forgiveness. I simply wanted him to know. By the time I finished, evening had fallen. Relief swept over me, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Though I knew the road ahead would be hard, I was ready to face it and own my choices. In the days that followed, I lived in restless anticipation. I mailed the letter and waited. How Mark would respond, I didn't know, but I prepared myself for anything. I spent more time with Buddy, seeking to make amends. Though he couldn't comprehend what had happened, I felt compelled to apologize. Holding him close, I whispered, "I'm sorry, buddy. I hurt you." He licked my hand once more, his quiet companionship easing my heartache. I walked through the park often, contemplating my future. I knew I couldn't keep living this way. Change was necessary. I had to find a new path. I thought about my passions and dreams. I wanted freedom, independence, and purpose. No longer would I live within the confines of expectation. I would reclaim myself. I decided to seek a job that fulfilled me, to contribute in ways that mattered. I no longer wanted to be defined only by my role as a wife. I wanted to rediscover my own worth. I also resolved to devote time to myself, to read, watch movies, travel, and savor life. Loneliness would no longer be my prison. One afternoon, Mark called. He wanted to meet and talk face to face. Nervous but resolute, I agreed. We had a long, difficult conversation. He listened as I laid bare my heart, my loneliness, my yearnings, my missteps with Buddy. I asked for nothing but understanding. Mark's pain was palpable. Anger and sorrow mingled in his voice as he questioned my choices. Though he was patient, forgiveness didn't come easily. He said he needed time to think. I understood. I had inflicted a wound that ran deep. We decided to separate, giving each other space to reflect. We would remain in touch, but no longer share a home. It was painful but necessary. I moved into a small apartment with Buddy, beginning anew. I embraced work that inspired me, carved out time for myself, and found joy in simple pleasures. Though I carried the weight of my mistake, I had no regrets about facing the truth. Lessons born of failure guided me forward. I knew life would go on. I would keep growing, keep striving, and one day find happiness once more. I still loved Buddy, but I knew our relationship could never be the same. I remained devoted to him, caring for and loving him as always. Yet, I understood the need for boundaries. I had to respect myself, and I had to respect Buddy. As time went on, my life slowly found stability. I secured a job that I enjoyed, lived in a small, cozy apartment, and built a life I felt content with. I still missed Mark, but I came to terms with the fact that we were no longer meant to be. I learned to release the past, to forgive myself, and to live fully in the present. Buddy remained my steadfast companion, a loyal friend who comforted me whenever I felt lost or lonely. I cherished him not only for his loyalty, but also for his quiet understanding and the constant care he gave me. No matter what life brought, I knew Buddy would always be there, like a true friend, a soulmate. At times, I wondered if I was crazy for the feelings I once had. Was what happened a mistake? But I also realized that life's inexplicable moments often carry the deepest meaning. I gazed out the window at the night-lit city. The glowing lights resembled stars scattered across the sky. A profound sense of peace settled within me. Life held countless adventures and discoveries yet to come, and I would live them, love them, and give myself fully to them. I stroked Buddy's fur, feeling the warmth of his body beneath my hand. "Thank you, Buddy," I whispered. "Thank you for always being here for me." He wagged his tail gently as if to say he loved me too. A small smile touched my lips, and happiness flickered softly in my heart. Sometimes I thought, happiness is simply a faithful dog by your side, unwavering, no matter what. And so, my story ends, a tale of loneliness, friendship, longing, and the choices that forever changed my life.